Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television, where we keep you updated with some of the current happening on the front page of the papers. Please do well to tune in, drop your comment, drop your views, as they are always welcome on the show. I am Sarah Laishidasham. I'll be doing this program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Morning, Sally.
Alright, we have quite a number of papers this morning, and we would love to start with New Telegraph newspaper.
On the New Telegraph newspaper, price war escalates as marketers increase imports by 80%. Other 244.3 billion naira worth of fuel. You can start with the details on the front page. Debt pressure pushes external reserves down by $1.19 billion. You can find details on page 28. Tinubu declines assent to Federal University. Newman bill over grammatical flaws and others. Senate appoints Orji Kalu Southeast Development Commission Committee Chair. Maltreatment, Kenya Airways apologizes to NCAA Nigerian passengers. IGP Obete Kun's continued service legally valid. This is coming from the senior advocate of Nigeria. The big story on the paper, INEC expresses worry over delegates buying during party primaries. 6 CSOs help in tackling anomaly. Anambra Guba LP begins nomination form sale, holds primary April 5th. You can find details on page 7 and 27. Ribadu is saying, I never said Tinubu, Akume, Kalu were corrupt when I was EFCC chair. Gunmen abduct 10 travelers in Ondo. IPR MRA issues resource guide on instruments protecting press freedom in Nigeria. China announces retaliatory action as Trump's tariffs take effect. You can find details on page 27. Still on New Telegraph, foreigners from UK, US now patronizing Nigerian health facilities. A report from the minister, the writer says, as FEC approves 12 billion naira for teaching hospitals upgrades, 30 million pounds FDA loans for students accommodations. We have 75.8 billion naira bond to defray outstanding and pensions. OK is 287.72 billion naira for 14 road projects, 80 billion naira for low dam rehabilitation. You can find details on page 2 and 27. Federal government unveils 2025 seasonal climate prediction, declares early rainfall in parts of Nigeria. We have a study that says replacing meat with plant-based alternative reduces cholesterol and weight. So you can find plant-based protein in case you're worried that when you stop eating meat, you will be going short on your protein intake, but then you can always replace it with plant-based alternatives. You can find details on page 13. That's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
Looking at the Nation newspaper, NIMED alerts Lagos Ogun Delta rivers on mid-year flood. So I believe that the governors of these various states should take effect from now to avoid this flooding that might come in mid-year. Clearing agents reject 4% levy on imported cargoes by custom. SEC regulates capital market with technology. UNICEF to military induced protocol in training curriculum. You can find more detail of that on page 3. 7 travelers abducted in Ondo State, and then Epekulu declares war on criminals in Edo State. More detail of that story can be found on page 6. Toiling of highways begin. Umahi saying generated revenue for maintenance. Payment kicks off on Abuja Makodi Road. And then what to pay if it is your car you need to toll is about 500 naira. It's an SUV 800 naira, mini buses 1000 naira, articulated 1600. So you can look at more detail of that story on page 2. FEC approves 758 billion naira for pension arrears, with the rider saying 30 million euro loan for student housing scheme. And we have the picture story with the caption, First Lady lifts victim of Niger tanker explosion with 100 million naira. More detail of that story can be found on page 3. We can see her over there taking a photograph together with the Niger State governor and other people. And that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, APC mulls indirect primary ahead of Anambra gubernatorial poll. GAC meeting ends in deadlock as parties disagree on Obasa's fate. EFCC arraigns 11 Chinese for alleged cyber fraud and others. The big story on The Guardian, federal government, ANRD, CMDs, others bicker over state of health sector, good rating. Four oil firms post 386 billion naira profit amid uncertainty, security concerns. First Lady donates 100 million naira to Niger tanker explosion victims, visits IBB and Abdul Salami. PFN declares national rebirth, vows to expose corrupt leaders. World Cancer Day, federal government to explore health insurance for cancer. Senate threatens to arrest IGP, Customs CG, FIRS, NNPCL, CBN heads over audit snub. You can find details on page 8. And we have a picture story where we can see the CEO Ebonyi Unite Group and Mo Abudu together with Vice President Shatima. We also have the story that says Mo Abudu showcases Nigeria's creative economy with Niger Creates in London. You can find details on page 4, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, starting with a big story, marketers may dump NNPCL as price war with Dangote rages. Dealers adopt MRS logo to access cheaper Dangote petrol. Consider NNPCL franchise suspension. More detail of that found in the paper. PDP Secretary Wike Kam writes the Supreme Court ahead of Board of Trustee meeting. Lagos Assembly may write Tinubu over Obasa. This is coming from the GAC members. Government releases power tariff high guidelines for discos. You can read that on page 29. And regarding tax reform, reps set for fresh debate, whole closed door session with detail found on page 2. We have the picture story where we see DR Congo soldiers, rebels clash their toll hit over 900, and we can see the mass burial taking place over there. Gunmen kidnapped 7 Ondo travelers, 27 suspects arrested. Police arraign suspended Ogun monarch, hunts accomplice. And then also the last story on the paper, death toll rises to 16 in community headsmen killings. Detail found on page 5, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On First News newspaper, the first story, I won't deny my Igbo identity despite criticisms, Ohaneze president is saying. TikTok deletes over 2 million Nigerian videos for safety violation. Passengers maltreatment, NCAA gives Kenya Airways 48 hours to apologize. The big story, patients now coming from UK, US for treatment in Nigeria. This is a report from the federal government. Court orders for future of 222,729 crypto assets linked to fraud syndicate. Visit to Babangida Abdul Salami, non-political statement from the First Lady, where we can see a picture showing the First Lady Remi Tinubu visits Babangida Abdul Salami in Minna. This happened on February the 3rd. Federal government approves 80 billion naira for Alo Dam reconstruction. CBN, NNPCL orders snub Senate over missing billions. The last story on the paper here, NAPTIP rescue 21 boys from trafficking in Niger. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, federal government will roll out 7 million smart meters in 2025. Lagos Assembly crisis, beat us Obasa successor, hit brick wall. And then we see coming from Ribadu, I never said Tinubu Akume Kadu were corrupt when I was EFCC chairman. You can read more detail of that story in the paper. El-Rufai slammed Governor Sani over psychopathic support for Tinubu. More detail found on page 8. The big story, alarm as cartel target teenage girls for organ harvesting. The writer here is in outlines of the nefarious recreative trade in Nigeria, how young girls are snared into donating eggs. International Federation of Fertility Societies raid against practice. Victims narrate audio. Police Boko reported cases. NATEP canvasses enlightenment campaigns in schools and others. And I think I'm also in support of all of this enlightenment that needs to be done so that girls or even boys can actually be able to know when somebody is trying to, play smart and actually, use them for any of these things. More enlightenment needs to be done, not just in schools, at homes, and even in churches or any religious place of worship. You can read more detail of these on page 14. NCAA gives Kenya Airways 48 hours to apologize for passengers' maltreatment. You can find out on page 8 where we saw already one of our papers saying they have apologized. And then still on the Vanguard newspaper, federal government flags of tolling on federal highways. Federal government to take over incomplete Lagos-Ibadan expressway sections by April, coming from Umahi, the Minister of Works. We have also a story on page 39 on sport. You can do well to read that. And then the picture story, we can see First Lady visit Babangida. And that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, the big story, NIMET predicts early rainfall events in Nigeria. Kenyamo unveils 2025 seasonal climate prediction. You can find details on page 2. The top of the paper, money politics will destroy APC, a statement from Ganduje. Vice President Shatima pushes for coordinated efforts to boost Nigeria's economy. Plateau governor inaugurates 5 new commissioners. FCTA approves major infrastructure project. CBN says external reserves dropped by $1.19 billion in 3 weeks. And that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, Tinubu approved reconstruction of Alu Dam in Borno at 80 billion naira, with the rider declines asset to Federal University of Education NUMA bill. More details found in the paper. Senate moves against IGP, FRS, NNPCL, CBN, and others, with the rider may issue arrest warrant. The big story on the paper, which is on agriculture, Tinubu has taken us back to what we know how to do best. Coming from Odudu, that is the governor of Kogi State, with the rider dedicates independent award to Kogi people. State has spent over 9 billion naira in agriculture, coming from Fawo. You can read more detail of that story in the paper. Economic reforms working 2025 is to consolidate on all our programs, says Minister. Delegate buy-in, INEC calls for CSO oversight in party primaries, and I hope this time around we'll not see where the hope of Nigerians will be in the hands of these delegates. We hope that people will play by the books. More details found on page 7. Gunmen strike again in Ondo, abduct 10 travelers. Motorists to pay maximum of 1,600 as federal government commences toll collection on Abuja Makodi Road. Orders to be commissioned soon in the 6 geopolitical zones. More data found on page 6. And we have the CDS advocate non-kinetic approach in achieving 2.5 million barrel per day crude production target. Meet the NSA, IOCs, NNPCL, oil producing states, and others, with data found on page 7. Federal government to raise 758 billion naira bond to clear backlog of pension liabilities. Approved 30 million euro concessional financing from the FDA. Downside of the paper, UMBA ends multiple taxation, signed into the law bill to create one-stop shop for taxation. More detail found on page 6, and that's all in Daily Independent newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, FEC approves 758 billion naira to clear pension liabilities. The writer says OK's 30 million euros concessional loan to support student housing project. 80 billion naira for reconstruction expansion of Alu Dam in Borno. 126 billion naira for MRI, CT scanners at OAU, and others. Federal government says US, UK patients now seek medical care in Nigeria. At the top of the paper, 29 states removed speakers in 26 years. Use criticisms against Nigeria to prioritize development, a statement from Obi. Nigeria to experience severe dry spell of over 27 to 40 days in some areas, a report from the federal government. Delta, Bayelsa, Oyo, Ogun, Osun, Lagos, 7 other states to witness early rain, a report from NIMET. On brain drain, Nigerian doctors earn less than cleaners abroad, a statement from Afe Babalola. Police arraign suspended Ogun traditional ruler over assault threat to life, court grants him bail. Gunmen attack bus, abduct travelers in Ondo. You can find details on page 26. On Obership crisis, Adeleke only followed process made on ground. A statement from Osun government releases details on Esa Ido Oyegunle communal crisis, says 2025 document affirms Owa Obokun as prescribed authority over Ido Oyegunle. You can find details on page 3, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the metric newspaper, manhandling of Nigerian passenger, NCAA demand apology, compensation from Kenya Airways, with more detail of the story found on the front page, and you can continue reading that on page 3. Still on the metric newspaper, all hands must be on deck to transform Nigeria's economy, coming from the federal government, expresses confidence in Niger trade project to promote Tinubu's diversification agenda. More detail found on page 3. Gunmen abduct 10 travelers on Ondo Highway. The big story on the paper, tragedy adverted as 2 petrol tankers explode in Adamawa. The writer says police command commenced investigation into incident. Welcome any useful information that will aid investigation. Remi Tinubu donates 100 million naira to Niger tanker explosion victims. Death toll from Enugu tanker explosion climbs to 23, with data found in the paper. Tinubu withholds approval for Federal University of Education bill. And regarding Edo Tribunal dismissed SDP case against Governor Okpebholo, detail found on page 8. I can focus on my life, family, Fani Kayode speak after acquittal. You can read more detail of that on page 10. We have the picture story with the caption here, boosting investment in oil and gas industry, where we can see the president hosted the delegation from ExxonMobil at the State House yesterday. Downside of the paper, we also have an entertainment story. Do well to get the paper and read more detail of these and others of interest to you.
On Nigerian News Direct, the big story, FEC approves 758 billion naira bond to settle pension backlog. News Direct ED Matthew Ibiemi donates learning materials to schools in Ile-Ife, Ota on birthday. Jigawa government REA signed memorandum of understanding to generate 1,000 megawatt power, develop other renewable energy projects. Kaduna discussed workers' strike subsides as residents lament prolonged blackout. Concerning SROK crisis, Governor Adeleke visits crisis scene, vows to bring culprits to justice. Immigration to launch contactless passport solution in Europe by February 7. You can find details on page 4, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On the leadership newspaper, we're starting with the leadership award. It's a push to do better, coming from the CG Custom Adeniyi Public Service Person of the Year. More detail found on page 7. Still on the leadership trending, we see here Army screen fallen heroes children for scholarship on numbers. Nigeria to benefit from 150 billion euro EU initiative. Detail of both trending and numbers can be found on page 2. Crude price instability threatening Nigerians' 36.35 trillion revenue projection. Crude oil instability threatening Nigeria's 36.35 trillion naira revenue projection. Data found on page 7. Uba Sani Erufai's fight get messier amid verbal attacks. The big story, emergency declaration on flood, poor implementation mirrors 19-month exercise. The rider government is unserious, says expert. One state government buy-in, impact not felt, coming from Professor Amalu. Details found on page 4. Bandit killed 2, kidnapped 5 in Kaduna State. Kanu government to domesticate weed policy. And then we have Tinubu approves 80 billion naira for Alum Dam reconstruction. Kwara hands over Campe Game Reserve to federal government. More detail found on page 7. We have the picture story here, looking at the Leadership Gold Standard Award picture series. We are glad we are being noticed, coming from the CEO Alternative Bank, Hassan Yusuf. And that's all on the Leadership newspaper.
At the very top of Blueprint newspaper is World Cancer Day. Federal government to establish, upgrade 6 federal teaching hospitals. I never labeled Tinubu Akume Kalu corrupt as EFCC chair. Ribado is defending himself. You can find details on page 7. POS transactions climbed to 18 trillion naira 2024 report. 2026 World Cup qualifiers, how Bafana will beat Super Eagles to ticket. A statement from the coach. You can find details on page 33. The big story on Blueprint, federal government okays 758 billion naira for pension liabilities, 30 million euros for student housing loan. Approves 80 billion naira for Alu Dam construction. Tinubu's reforms working. A statement from Idris. Only 450 staffers, not 900, affected by restructuring. This is a statement from Kaduna Electric. Stakeholders caution as Ubasani El-Rufai feud deepens. Governor will soon come to judgment. A statement from ex-governor. You lack moral rights, Sani clearing mess inherited from you. This is KPUF saying. GAC backs Miranda, turns down Obasa's return bid as Lagos Speaker. Coalition faults Kyari, resignation call, says it's misguided. Protect pilgrims from e-payment fraud, rather charges Nakan. You can find details on page 4. The last story here is Kenyamo. High intensity rainfall in May-June may lead to flash floods. This is a report coming from the Minister of Aviation. You can find details on page 17, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
All right, let's look at another paper, which is the New Nigerian newspaper. Telkom's tariff hike. Nigerians' interests will be safeguarded, Reps Committee assures, with the story found on page 3. Cancer not a death sentence, early detection, proper nutrition key to prevention. This is coming from expert, I believe, still in commiserating the World Cancer Day that was yesterday. Kaduna resident grown as blackout entered day 3. With the rider, Kaduna Electric Union leader blames. More detail to be found inside the paper. We are Nigerians by God's design. Let's work as one indivisible entity. Bauchi First Lady saying. Bids farewell to intending Christian pilgrims. More detail found on page 12. UNICEF presents UN Child Protection Handover Protocol to Nigerian Armed Forces Training Institution, with the rider institution pledged to incorporate it into curriculum. More detail found on page 4. Center Loan NLC NCC parley over Telkom tariff, says both institutions mean well for masses, with detail found on page 2. Governor Odudu heads to appeal court to reverse sack, calls for calm. This is regarding the Onyoyi of Ibraland. More detail found on page 3. Umahi flags off toll gates on Abuja Lafia Makodi Highway. Married woman arraigned for refusing marriage after collecting money from new suitor. More detail on that human angle can be found on page 2. NOA intensified campaign against meningitis, Lassa fever, cholera in Katsina State, with detail of the story found on page 2. And that's all the new Nigeria, but let's take a break. When we come back, we'll look at sport and business.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Thanks for tuning. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories, especially looking at the warning coming from NIMET regarding the early rains in some part of the country. Some states have actually been pointed out, and I believe that the governors of that state need to start working on what needs to be done to actually protect the indigents from flooding and its likes. As well, we're seeing that the federal government is proud to brag the fact that we have patients coming from UK and US for checkup here regarding health here in the country. And then also we're seeing INEC actually expressing concerns regarding money paying to delegates regarding primaries and all of that. So all fingers being equal, we hope that things will go as INEC and others have actually envisioned. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much.
You're
Rachel.
welcome, Sarah.
All right, let's take a look at what the sports has for us.
On Punch Sport Extra, the big story: winter shakeup. Nigerian star seeking career revival, upgrade after January transfer. And we are seeing that Iheanacho is one of those struggling with this January transfer shakeup. You can find details on page 6. Eagles get date for Rwanda-Zimbabwe World Cup qualifiers. Fans hail Taiwo on Marcel induction. Adesanya drops 2 places after loss in Saudi. Leicester blocked Ndidi's League One move. NPFL file out of Rangers reach. You can find details on page 6. Messi is great, but I'm most complete. A statement from Ronaldo. Rashford targets UCL glory at Villa. No brainer to join Palace. This is a statement from Chilwell. Arteta disappointed by Arsenal transfer window. You can find details on page 4. NWFL Rivers Delta clash as Edo Queens invade Lagos. On basketball, Nigeria battle Canada, China, Portugal in under-19 Women's World Cup. And that's all the news on Point Sports Extra.
On Business Day newspaper, inside Nigerians' $100 billion palm oil export. And then we have Okumo Prisco earned over $18 million in export and exchange gain. Still on Business Day newspaper, real revenue fails to offset mounting debt. Why Trump's oil price cut won't budge Nigeria. This is coming from OPEC, I believe. Footprint of Zenith Bank, Go Getter, Amazon. More detail of that can be found in the paper. We have a picture story. You can do well to take a closer look at it and other stories of interest to you in the paper.
On the Matrix Sport newspaper, transfer deadline day, Chelsea announces deals for Vel Boniface to others. On the NPFL, Mego hails Abel Warriors' victory over Aqua United. After Sevilla's poor treatment, Borough coach confident in Iheanacho's abilities. I've been unfair to Ukonko, Chelsea manager Maresca is saying, and that's all the news on the Matrix Sport.
Well, and that's how far we can go on the program, the Dailies. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for always dropping your comment. Thank you for our viewers and our supporters. We look forward again to doing this together. To have a lovely day ahead.